Looks like we've been cleared from the loading dock. So we're going to be heading out today. You all are excited to see some wonderful wildlife here at the world famous San Diego Zoo. Let me hear you roar, ladies and gentlemen. That was pretty good. You know what? That was actually a much longer roar than I anticipated. Alrighty, my name is Andrew. I'm going to be a tour guide operator for the next 35 to 40 minutes, and we're going to be, like I said, exploring some wonderful wildlife here at the world famous San Diego Zoo. Now here at San Diego Zoo, we're a part of, along with the Safari Park, part of the Wildlife Alliance, a non-profit conservation organization that innovates and collaborates with other organizations to protect the wonderful species that live in this big old blue marble we live on. We do that through something called conservation hubs. I'll explain what that is a little bit later in our tour, but first I think it's a good idea to talk about the zoo in general. Now this zoo is well over 100 years old and over 100 acres, give or take, so it can be a little lost, a little confusing at times. If you ever want to find a particular habitat, or if you ever are lost, make sure you download our app to get a digital map, or if you'd like to, you can pick up a physical map too, right over and behind us, if you'd like to make sure you don't get lost, find all your favorite habitats and your favorite animals. If you look over to our left, you're going to be seeing our exit sign. That's for when you folks are ready to leave today. Past the exit sign, though, is going to be the reptile house, the reptile walk, the base camp, and the skyfari. Make sure you check out those areas before you leave, folks. It's actually quite good. Sorry about that, we had a radio call for a second. I had to stay quiet, but looks like it doesn't concern us. Now then, as we're heading down Tiger Trail here in a moment, I'd like you all to remember some important safety tips. We're going to view this bus kind of like a very, very slow roller coaster. What that means is we're going to have our arms, legs, heads, children, phones, anything inside the vehicle at all times. It's going to keep you safe, and it's going to keep these wonderful plant life around us safe as well. We're also going to make sure our feet are firmly on the ground at all times. And we're going to make sure that if you stand up, you are allowed to stand up on my vehicle. Just make sure you're grabbing onto something, preferably those silver rails to either side of you or in front of you. Now with all that lovely safety stuff out of the way, let's just start talking about those conservation hubs I mentioned. Now there are 8 conservation hubs scattered throughout the world, and each one represents a specific locale and area that we focus to protect the animals and plant life living in that area. Currently, we are in Tiger Trail, representing the Asian Conservation Hub. We're going to be protecting species like the Chinese alligator, the red panda, the giant panda, plant life like this bamboo. You can see a couple of species over to our left and to our right, and of course our ever so majestic tiger species. There are a couple of them scattered throughout Asia. The one we're going to be seeing over to our right are going to be 2 of our males. These are our male Malayan tigers. So you'll see if they're out today. They are, sometimes they want to be out, sometimes they don't. It literally depends on how they're feeling. But they are ambush predators, so they can choose whether they want to be seen or not. Does anyone happen to see our tigers? Looks like over there on the top there. I can't see them that well, but it looks like they're actually going to be towards the back there. Now these are, like I said, are our Malayan tigers. Malayan tigers are the second smallest subspecies of tiger found in the Malaysian peninsula. Now an interesting little detail about them, tigers are ambush predators, and they are excellent ambush predators at that. And but it's a little bit confusing how they're so good at ambush hunting, because they literally live in these green verdant forests, and they're orange, black, and white. And how is an orange, black, and white animal going to blend in into a green forest? Pretty simple, actually. Most animals cannot see the color orange. Most animals only have blue-green color tones in their eyes, unlike primates and birds, which have a whole spectrum of colors that we can see. But a deer and even another tiger will only see a tiger as this green and gray blob, effectively. So their coloration is actually very, very useful to blend in to the Asian forests. Now then, we're going to be moving along from the Asian Conservation Hub over to our African Conservation Hub. Look over to our right, folks. You're going to see a representative of the African Savannah Hub. This is going to be one of our hippos. I assume this is Lupe. Is that her right there? Yep, that's her. Looks like she's munching away on some lovely alfalfa for her breakfast. And if you're a very special guest, look on the far right, folks. You're going to see a baby okapi. You're going to see the mom, and right behind her is going to be that calf. Sorry, Guadalupe, we're looking at the baby now. But that's going to be him right there. I don't actually know if the calf is a male or female yet. I believe female. Oh, there they go, they're running after the mom. Now, okapis are related to giraffes. They are actually referred to as forest giraffes, although if you look at their back legs, oh, got to zoom these today. Going back and forth, looking at those legs. Now, just like a lot of ungulants, you know, like deers, giraffes, horses, they can stand pretty much instantly after birth. I believe for an okapi, they can stand like 30 minutes after they're born. And this okapi's not even a month old at this point. So they're all happy and giddy and walking around, having fun. Now, like I said, okapis are related to giraffes, called forest giraffes. And you can see that by their long neck and the fact they have a very long prehensile tongue. But those back stripes there on their legs look a little bit like a zebra striping. That is actually there in order to help them blend into the forests of Africa they live. They live in the equatorial band of Africa. That's also where gorillas happen to live. Some leopard species, tons of primates live there as well. Good. That's actually a pretty rare sight. I very rarely see that okapi calf because she's a little shy. So sometimes you'll see the calf kind of be hanging around behind mom or hanging around the cabin. But I'm guessing because it's early enough, you gotta see her. That's always good to see. And mom is doing healthy as well. Always good to see. Now then, we're heading on to our next habitat. Look over to our right. See if you can't find any of our primates. Our red-tailed Guinean, otherwise known as the red-tailed monkey, or our swamp monkey, Allen's swamp monkey. Now the red-tailed monkey is going to be a lot smaller with this very long red tail, while the Allen swamp monkey is gray and is actually quite muscular for a monkey. They're designed to swim through the rivers of equatorial Africa, and that's where they get the name swamp monkey. Alrighty, let's keep on heading forward, folks. Our next habitat is going to be another African one. This is going to be venturing to see some very famous African birds. Take a look over to our left and see our flamboyance of greater flamingos. These are the African cousins of the American flamingos you saw at the front entrance. But you're going to notice something right away. These flamingos are not quite as pink as the American flamingos, and that is their diet. Now, shout out, how does a flamingo get their pink coloration? Shrimp. It's brine shrimp they eat. These greater flamingos, they live in salt plains, so they end up eating a lot more algae than they do shrimp. And as a result, they don't get that pink pigmentation and end up being more white, which is a little bit more helpful considering the fact they live in an area covered in salt. And the next one coming up is going to be our African cormorants right here. And you can see one looks like, is that a leaf? Are you just eating a leaf? Nope, never mind. I think that is a fish. Alright. Now these African cormorants here are quite the unique species because they are the best dive fishers on the planet. They could dive about 150 feet below the water, grab a fish about the size of their head, and swallow it whole, all in one fell swoop. It's very impressive by human standards, but if you're a fish, it's probably absolutely terrifying. Luckily, we're not fish here, right? Now then, we're going to be heading right up to northern frontier here in a nice little lull in the animal action. We're going to see some of our plant species though. We got plenty of willows, pines, firs, oaks, all this from the northern hemisphere because like I said, we're heading up to northern frontier. Now if you take a look over to our left, you're going to see the most dangerous habitat of all, the freeway. And if you follow this particular freeway, maybe for about 40 minutes, you're going to be able to visit our sister location, the Safari Park, past Poway there. I would highly recommend you visit the Safari Park when you have the time. It's an absolutely lovely experience. It's also a little bit different than the zoo. Different vibe, I'll say. Now moving on from some cars, which I'm sure everyone is riveted by, and going over to the right, where we're going to look out for our Grevy's zebra. Now these are the largest and rarest species of zebra, and they're actually so rare they have their own trust foundation, the Grevy Zebra Trust, which is there to help make sure that the Grevy zebra population doesn't dip below an acceptable levels, making sure they're nice and healthy. And another friend from Africa, if you look look over to the right, you're going to see some lovely Spix gazelle. These are the smallest species of gazelle, a very small member of the antelope family. And if you look really hard, you might see a baby in there. Just like the Okapi calf, that baby is only 3 weeks old. You can tell them apart because the baby does not have any horns. Now, a lot of people confuse, and you can also see a lesser kudu in the back who looks like a statue. Hello. Something got her spooked, I'm assuming. Or she's just standing there. One of the two. Now, a lot of people confuse antelopes with deer, but there's a pretty easy way to tell them apart. Antelopes have horns, while deer have antlers. Horns are a permanent addition, while a deer's antlers will fall off annually. Now, I'm driving past the polar bear habitat because I can see there are some crows in here, and that means that there are no polar bears. The crows are intelligent enough to know that when they're in the habitat, there's no polar bears in the habitat. They leave when the polar bear gets out. So that's why we're able to pretty effectively tell there's no polar bears right now. However, what we do have, take a look over to the right, another antelope species. These are the bontebok. At one point, these were a critically endangered species. Only around 17 of them left in the wild. But thanks to the efforts of some private ranchers and some conservation organizations, their number has skyrocketed well up to 3,000. So they're doing quite well in South Africa, what we found. Another antelope over to our right, going to be the Gerenuk. This is known as the giraffe-necked antelope. You can see why. We can take a look right at that neck. That lets them graze up at the browsing vegetation up high. Finally, over to our right, we have our peccaries, but I don't have a good view of them, which is a little unfortunate, because I do love our peccaries. Now, that's going to conclude the Northern Frontier section. We're going to be swiftly moving along to the rest of the zoo. Now, like I said, look above you, that's going to be the Skyfari. So it's going to be fun. And if you look to the left here, you're going to see some rather interesting animals plodding along. Over to our left is going to be a giant anteater. And if you look at the ground laying down underneath the bridge, you'll also see some mara. Now, mara, they look a little bit like rabbits, but they aren't rabbits, they are rodents. Rabbits are lagomorphs. Those mara are actually very closely related to the capybara. You can probably tell by the way their names sound. They both live in South America, fairly large rodents. The capybara is actually the largest rodent of them all. Now then, take a look over to the left. If you manage to see a mountain lion, let me know, but I don't see any right now. Mountain lions go by a variety of different names. They can be called catamounts, pumas, sometimes panthers, deer, tigers, ghost cats. We got a lot of names for them. And also to our right is going to be a maned wolves, although I don't see them right now. They're very elusive canine found in South America. They look a little bit like someone took a fox and put them in Photoshop and stretched them out. But they're not foxes and they're not wolves. They're actually completely unique species. And they also have that, if you may have smelt it, it smells a little bit like skunk. That is actually the urine of the maned wolf. It's quite a scent. We have entered into Elephant Odyssey, a step into California's past 12,000 years ago during the Pleistocene when the mammoths and the saber-toothed cats ruled. We're going to be looking at some animals that represent species that have since died out. Take a look over to our left, folks. You're going to be looking at our rock hyraxes. Now, those are some rather peculiar-looking fluffy potatoes of some kind, but they are not fluffy potatoes, and they aren't rodents either. Those are actually relatives of elephants and manatees. They don't look like it, but if you look inside their mouth, their insides are actually tusks. Now then, we're going to be pulling along over here to the right. See if we can spot any lions today. It looks like we have a couple of phones over here. What do we have? I can't see that much from here on my my shiny driver's seat. Keep on moving forward. If you see our lioness, that's going to be Miss Ellen. Looks like over to the left. Oop, there's a plant there. Sorry about that plant. Oh, there she is. Is she awake? Yeah. She's kind of awake. She's doing that weird half sleep, half awake looking at you thing. Now I'm going to stop right here because you might be able to see her. She's going to be on the far left of the habitat on that wooden porch there. She's looking right at it, so look for her eyes. Now that is Miss Ellen. She is going to be our lioness. We also have her brother, Ernest, somewhere in here. I don't know where he is. He's bigger than her. I don't know how he can hide. But Ernest and Miss Ellen are both African lions, second largest cat species you can find on the planet. and they are actually representing an extinct American cat species, not the saber-toothed cat. The saber-toothed cats are actually completely extinct, and their family no longer exists. But they are representing something called the American lion, which was a feline about 25% larger than the largest American lion, and then the largest African lion. Those have unfortunately gone extinct, but they used to live here in California many thousands of years ago. You can also see some of our lovely birds still left, like the turquoise and the regalia bird of paradise. And we have an excellent view right here. Take a look at this rock on this little lip here of the rock. There she is. Hi girl, how are you today? That is going to be Nadiri. She is our 17-year-old little old lady. She's a jaguar, representing the Amazonia Conservation Hub. Now then, jaguars, a lot of people confuse jaguars for leopards and cheetahs, but there's a very easy way to tell them apart. Look at Nadiri's spots. You're going to see that her spots actually have smaller spots inside of them. It's spotception. That is called a rosette. She's also a lot larger and heavier than any leopard. Leopards do not have those rosettes. They have more of an open face spot kind of deal. And they're a lot slimmer, a lot lighter, they're a lot smaller than a jaguar is. A leopard's whole deal is climbing up trees and dragging their prey up with them. A jaguar's whole deal is swimming through the Amazon River. Now, it looks like she's going to get some beauty sleep, so we're going to keep on going by. Jaguars are actually the third largest cat on the planet, and they have a rather brutal nickname. They are also called skull crushers, and they get that name because of their incredibly powerful bite force. And they do exactly what their name suggests they do. It's a little too 90s action star for me, but Skull Crushers does make quite the entrance. Alright, we're going to keep on moving forward. Now, if you take a look over to our right, see if you can't see, it looks like we have some coconut dogs, otherwise known as capybaras, on the lip of that rock over there as we're heading by, along with the Baird's tapir over there. Now that Baird's tapir looks a little hard to see them right now because they're kind of asleep currently. And you can also see one of our elephants, looks like Shaba on the other side. A little hard to see her because she's kind of obscured by the vegetation. But back to that tapir though. Yeah, it looks like Shaba's away. Tapir is poking his head out right now. With those tapirs, a lot of people confuse them for pigs, perhaps, or even smaller elephants because of their large noses. But they are actually related to horses and rhinoceros. They are quite the unique little specimen right there. They used to be found here in California too, along with capybaras actually, but their effective range has moved down to South America and Central America, the Baird's tapir. Alright, we're going to let these carts going by. Now, if you're taking a look over here to the right, you might be seeing our a large building coming up. That is actually going to be our lovely ECC, the Elephant Care Center, where we care for our elephants' physical and mental needs. An elephant is not a small animal, so we got to take care of them in their own special areas. The ECC is one such area. We're going to make sure that they have all the needs they need over here. Can't exactly take them to a veterinary hospital if something goes wrong, so we have to have this here for them. Now, we do have our elephant digging opportunity happening today. It looks like with our males, so we're going to see if we can't spot them. Now, then, before we do, we're going to have a quick little glance right over here to the right as we're driving by. We're going to also see our elephants as we go. Not the best view from here, but the animal you're going to see really well. Look at these pigeons here, folks. These are the Imperial and the Nicobar pigeons. The Imperials are the ones that have the Guy Ferrari haircut. And these Nicobar pigeons down here are the green and black ones. And it looks like we also see our elephants over there. Sorry, pigeons, I'd love to talk about you, but we have our elephants messily eating some alfalfa. You can see them using their trunks right now. I'm going to move forward so everyone can see them. You can see them using their trunks right now. 600 muscles in that trunk. It's made up of their upper lip and their nose, which allows them to effectively grasp anything. It's very dexterous appendage. It's known as a prehensile appendage. Now we're going to go see if we can get a better look. Those are two of our males. So our males are actually younger than our female. The female is 46, so she's middle-aged for an elephant. And our oldest male is only 24, so he's still got some growing to do. I believe, oh, is that all three of them right there? Okay. Cool. Hi, how are you today? I'm going to try and get a better look at them because they're currently like in the worst spot for us to see them, right behind that rock. Let us see if we can see who we can see. There they are. You're going to look behind you folks as we're going on by. It'll be a little hard to see them unfortunately, but they're not in the best view. You're going to see them reaching up their trunk right now, going through the barrels. That's an enrichment tool. It's filled up with treats and snacks for them to eat. It's the same thing as giving your dog a treat that has a little snack inside of it. Well, that enrichment helps them exercise their mental capacity. Sometimes they'll just rip it down though, so that's fun. Now then, as we're heading by, we're going to point out some interesting things about these elephants as we're moving on by. You'll see those tusks. Those tusks, a lot of people hunt elephants and poach them. They're actually almost endangered, and that is due to the poaching trade for something called ivory. It is those tusks that an elephant has. However, little known fact, ivory doesn't really exist. Ivory is just enamel. It's the same stuff our teeth is made of, because an elephant's tusk is just their tooth. It is their incisor. So if you find your incisors in your mouth and kind of spread them out of your face, that's what an elephant's tusk is. And unfortunately, though, that the ivory trade does quite the damage to the elephant population. Luckily, there's other organizations across the world that do everything they can to protect them, that can give them wildlife sanctuaries. Here at the zoo, we do not sell, buy, or in any way endorse ivory products. So if you happen to see anything that looks like it's made of ivory, make sure you double check what's actually in there, so you're not inadvertently supporting the ivory trade. Now then, we're going to be moving on from one large mammal to another, although I cannot see her at all because she's behind a rock. Everyone wants to be behind the rocks today. I'd like to see someone not behind the rock. You might be able to see them glancing through the foliage here. This is going to be our domesticated dromedaries. The upper level is going to be have a little bit better of a view of them. But these are the domesticated dromedaries, otherwise known as the Arabian camels. They have one hump. The Bactrians have two. They're found in Central Asia, like Mongolia. Now then, as we're heading by, like a lot of the animals you saw today, they actually used to live here in America, called the American camels. Their ancestors yet live on. They are called the guanacos, alpacas, and llamas. Now then, living in South America all those thousands of years ago was a bird known as Argentavis. It had a 24-foot wingspan, making it one of the largest flying animals to ever exist. What we have over here to our right is a relative of the Argentavis. See if you can spot our California condor in here. Looks like going to be on this rock over here to the left. Look atop that rock there, folks. That is going to be the California condor with a wingspan of 8 to 10 feet. That makes their wingspan longer than this bus is long. We're going to take a quick stop here so we can take a gander. Now, California condors look a lot like vultures. That is because they are related to New World vultures like turkey vultures and black vultures. And that bald head of theirs helps keep themselves clean when they're eating their favorite food, which is dead things. They are scavengers. They are carrion feeders. They eat things that have already died. And they're very helpful because they clean up the environment after they're done. Basically, they prevent the diseases from that dead animal from seeping into water streams or from seeping into the earth. And their gut biomes are so powerful that they can basically eat anything that's diseased and be fine, and they don't really feel it. Unfortunately, they're not completely immune to everything, and specifically, they're not immune to lead poisoning. And what that means is, back in the 60s to the 80s, a lot of folks in California were hunting with lead bullets. Now, a lead bullet is cheap and easy to be manufactured, but when you shoot an animal with it, that animal gets lead poisoning, and anything that eats that animal gets lead poisoning. So California condors were eating these animals left behind by hunters, getting lead poisoning, and at one point there's actually only 22 California condors left due to it. For reference, that's less than the people sitting in the lower level of this bus right now. So many California condors are left in the world. But thanks to the efforts of the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance and Fish and Wildlife Services, we've actually managed to boost that number up to well over 500. They can even be found in areas like the Grand Canyon. So that's my home, it's in my home state. So that's always good to hear. Now we're moving on from the Elephant Odyssey to looking at another African animal. Look atop that spire there. That is going to be a meerkat. Now meerkats are a type of mongoose that are famed for their sentry, their standing on duty. They stand up on their hind legs and they look around for any predators that might be a threat to their colony or their mob. Now, they're absolutely adorable too, so that's another reason they're famous. But they're also famous due to the Lion King. As in fact, Timon. As a matter of fact, the folks working on the Lion King actually came to San Diego Zoo to study how meerkats moved and acted. Now, we also have our lovely trumpeter hornbill in this habitat to the right. You might see the male in there. Now, trumpeter hornbills are an example of a monogamous pair. That means that when a trumpeter hornbill, male and female, pair together, they are mated for life, and they will remain that way until one of them dies. So death do us part in this case. And monogamous pairing is actually fairly common in birds. A lot of birds like hawks, eagles, ospreys, stuff like that will actually form these monogamous pairs. Alrighty, we're currently entering into the Africa Rocks garden right over here, and this is going to have tons of endangered African plant species like acacia, like agave, and all these different succulent species that we have over to our right. Now, the San Diego Zoo is a botanical garden just as much as it is a zoological society. So we're going to have tons of endangered plant species. More endangered plant species here at the zoo than we have endangered animal species, in fact. So if you'd like to learn more about our plants, you can always do so through our website, through our podcast, if you like listening to podcasts. Or you can just take a walk through the zoo yourself. We have private botanical tours that you can take if you want to learn more about these lovely plant life. Alrighty, we're going to be heading over to the Sydney's Grill. To the right of Sydney's Grill, coming up to our right, I should say, is going to be Urban Jungle. Urban Jungle is going to have our one-horned rhinoceros, our Maasai giraffe, our African cheetahs. Recently, our Maasai giraffe has given birth to a calf. That was on July 4th. I was going to name the calf Katy Perry, but I wasn't allowed to. But that calf is now happy, healthy, about 2 months old at this point, so he's getting a little bit taller now every day. We also have over to our left our most popular garden, the beer garden, of course. And over to our right as we're heading down where I used to work, Sydney's Grill. And past that is going to be the Bear Canyon. Quite a drop down here to Bear Canyon. Now, Bear Canyon on your maps and on the digital map will actually be referred to as Center Street. I don't call it Center Street because that's boring. I call it Bear Canyon because we have bears and it's a canyon. We're calling it Bear Canyon. Now then, we're going to look for some of our lovely ursine friends. Take a look over to the right, folks. That's where all of our animals are going to be. Now, our first habitats are going to have our sloth bears. I don't see them currently, unfortunately. I see lots of crows, though. But I do love our crows here, but unfortunately, I'm not here to talk about crows. I'm here to talk about bears. I don't actually see them. They might be in their caves in the back there, so we're going to keep on heading forward. Now, we're going to go see if we can't see the male sloth bear. This is going to be the mom and her 2 cubs. We're going to see them if we can. Some more birds over here to the right. These are going to be our white-headed ducks and our red-breasted geese. Now, this is just a quick little reminder for you folks. If you happen to see a duck or a goose or a swan out there in the wild or in the pond somewhere, don't chase them. Give like 20 to 50 feet between you and any duck, if you can. We don't want to stress the ducks out because they'll fly away. They might hurt themselves. Nobody wants that. Now then, moving on from our wonderful waterfowl, we're going to see our grizzly bears somewhere. Question mark? Oh, there's one. I was beginning to wonder we wouldn't see him. Look over in that cave in the middle, folks. That is going to be our grizzly bear. We have 2 grizzly bears here, Scout and Montana. They're a brother pair. Now, these bears are actually from Yellowstone National Park, and they were taken into captivity because they were actually learning from their mother on how to go through garbage cans. Very dangerous both for people and for the bears, but especially for the bears because they can actually be killed or euthanized if they get too close to human populations. So they were taken into captivity to make sure that that wouldn't happen. And they've done quite well here. They're serving as animal ambassadors. Now, fun little fact, in California, there used to be something known as a California grizzly bear. And if you look at the state flag of California, you will actually see a grizzly bear there. But unfortunately, those grizzly bears went extinct in California, so they can now only be found in further north. Now we're going to go try and find, looks like our sloth bear's not there, but look who we have over to the right. This is going to be Turbo, everybody. This is going to be our Andean bear, otherwise known as a spectacled bear. Now, he is absolutely adorable. A smaller bear species found in the Andean mountains. The Andes, I should say. Looks like he's munching away on... Is he munching away on the grass, or is he just looking at it? There he goes, he's munching. Okay. Now, these Andean bears, they're most recognizable due to those yellow spots around their eyes. It also gives them the name spectacle bears. But they're also well known because they are the only bear found in South America. There's no other bear found there. And a weird kind of fun fact, I don't know if it's fun or not, but it's weird. The Andean bear cubs look remarkably similar to Rottweilers. So there's actually been some folks in the Andes or in South America that unwillingly adopt an Andean bear cub thinking it is a Rottweiler pup. It's not, and they learn that somewhat quickly, but it happens sometimes, which is a little weird. Now, as we're heading over, we're going to be in this Asian rainforest. Over to our right is going to be where the Sun Bear Trail is. We're going to have some of our primates from Vietnam, Laos, Borneo. Currently can't see them very well right now, so just enjoy the shade. But if you do see any monkeys, the Francois langurs are the black-furred monkey with the mohawk, with the black mangabees, which also have black fur but with white cheeks. We have our colobus monkey, which are going to have this white fur that drapes down their shoulders. They look really cool because it looks like they're wearing an admiral's coat. And we also have our mandrill. You can actually see our male right over here to the right. You're going to see his blue and red nose. These are related to baboons. They are actually the largest monkey on the planet. They are not an ape, but they are a monkey, but they are absolutely gigantic, and you can see him all proud. They have something called sexual dimorphism. Basically what that means is the male and the female look different from each other. Now humans have this too, most primates do in some way or another, but in mandrills it is very pronounced. The male is up to 20 to 30 pounds heavier than the female, and has that impressive blue and red snout. Well, the female looks like an entirely different species. They look much, much smaller. They are pure brown instead of black, blue, and red. Quite interesting. Alrighty, folks, we're going to be heading straight up Africa Rocks here, and we're going to be taking a look over to our left. Try and find our penguins. These are going to be our African penguins over to the left, folks. Native to the southern coast of Africa, Cape Finbos. They are quite the unique species of penguin. You can't find them, they're a little hard to see because of the foliage. But they have quite the interesting little story. Now, if anyone knows what guano is, it's basically dried dung, and it's what most birds and bats excrete. Now, the guano of a penguin is used to protect their nest. It's used to fortify their nest to give them extra protection. But it's also really, really good fertilizer. So a lot of folks in Africa were actually using the African penguin guano as fertilizer, and it was doing quite the damage on their nest, making it harder for them to build their nest. So some legislature had to be passed, some protection laws, and now it gives the African penguins some extra chances to use their guano, not as fertilizer for folks living there, but rather for protecting their young as it was intended to be used. Now we also have our lemurs and our monkeys over to the left. I don't see either one of them right now, so we're going to keep on moving forward. It can be a little hard sometimes to see them, but we also have our leopard over here to the left. Now, if you do see our leopard, just remember, leopards are not jaguars. Leopards live in Africa and Asia. Jaguars live in the Amazon River Basin. Now, remember what I told you the difference between a jaguar and a leopard is. Alrighty, folks, we're going to keep on heading forward. Now, if you look over to the right as we're heading up, you're going to see our koala habitat. Now you might see them as a gray blob pressed up against the tree. That's them asleep. They sleep for around 22 hours every day. And that is due to their diet of eucalyptus leaves. Eucalyptus is actually toxic. Most animals can't digest it, but a koala, they don't care. They'll eat it, digest it, that's fine. But because it's a little bit hard to get the nutrients out of it, they have to spend extra energy sleeping to get all the dietary supplements they can from that eucalyptus. So it takes them a little while to digest, specifically 22 hours. we're going to be heading right up this